Hi, Bill here with 30-Minute Wood Shop. Thanks for joining. So today I want to show you how to make a really quick rustic kind of box. All right, now I'm doing this because I happen to have the brand for the Order of the Arrow Chippewa chapter here at the Michigami Lodge here in Southeast Michigan. Actually, Michigami Lodge is across Michigan. But that being said, this has been sitting in a box for quite some time, tends to get lost. I'm going to throw that box out. All right, I'm going to make something so that we have it and understand where it's at, and it doesn't just get stuffed back in the corner and no one knows. So I'm using this stack of lumber. Well, let's start with this. Like always, if you want a dimension sketch of this kind of stuff, all right, just go down here to 30minutewoodshop.com, click on the link, and you can go ahead and find that, that dimension sketch. All right. Now, there's a lot of other things down there, hit more, and you can find tools and things that I use, but they can do that later. Here's the deal. I'm winging it on this one, all right? I'm not going with a drawing. This actually isn't the right drawing. I got to make one. So when I get done, I'll actually reverse engineer it, put it on a piece of paper, and then you guys can use it if you want. Now, like all my sketches, make sure you make this your own. If you have something that's larger or smaller, wider or shorter, fatter, thinner, whatever, adjust the dimensions and you can make your own stuff, okay? So starting out with materials. All right, I get this pile of knotty pine, all right? It's tongue and groove knotty pine that's been sitting in a lumberyard warehouse for, well, probably almost 15, 20 years. They've been out of business and the place has been sitting there. It's finally come to a resolution in the whole place. I got into there, you know, they let me in, take a look, and I pulled some lumber out of there, and this is part of that lumber stack that I pulled. Not really high, this is not high value lumber, this is just some really cool stuff that I got because it's been around the area for a long time. You know, it was probably sitting up there 10 or 15, maybe even 20 years before that. So my guess is this stuff's about 40 years old, based on the look of it and the dirt on it and everything else. So I have this lumber here. At this point it's scrap. I'm going to make the box out of this and it should look pretty cool. So on that note, let's do some cutting. All right, here's a really quick layout. Okay, all I'm going to do is I know it's going to fit in this manner. So I'm going to do a quick spot there. And I decided I'm using this for the bottom all around, not going to bother. So I'll put a mark here. And I'm just going to butt these two surfaces up. So that kind of gives you an idea of what this thing really needs to look like. This is going to be the top, and then I'm actually going to have the actual lid's going to fit right there. So pretty straightforward in this kind of layout. Nothing too exciting. So basically that's what I'm looking at right there. 3 1/4, 3 1/4, 3 1/4. We should be pretty good. Put the lid on top, all set. So I cut one more, and then actually that should be enough. Because the offcuts here should be good for my ends. Well, that's coming together really nice. Okay. Let's do some measurement for a top. And then glue and nail this in together. Okay, just need to decide which of my fronts and backs and all that good stuff. And I think I've got the dirty ones at the bottom. So we'll leave that there. Now, the grooves are going inside, only because I like to have a flat surface on the outside. And that's the way she's going together. So let's throw some glue on this. Throw some nails into it. We'll do a little rub here just to spread the glue out So I'm not totally dependent on glue here. I'm depending also on the nails. And I'm using 1¼ 18 or 16 gauge nails here. So get a little glue, a little rub. And I'm using 16 gauge 1¼ nails. And these are 5/8 pieces, so. A little bit overkill, but you know. Now, because I cut all these at the same time, they're all the exact same length. So consider that when you're cutting. And a quick check. Fits perfect. All right, I got some sanding to do, and I got to make a top for this. So give me a few, and I'll be back. All right, here's a simple trick for setting the width for the top. All I'm going to do is just set it. That's about a 1/16 of an inch more than what I need. This is about what I want. I'll trim this off. Let's do a quick look. Yep, perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right. Now we got to cut it to length, and we'll be all set. I'm going to cut a fresh edge in this before I do that, though. But it'll be the same kind of thing. I'll set it up, I'll mark it, and then I'll cut it, rather than going through the whole mess of measuring. Now we just use some sanding round over, put a finish on it, we're good. The still leaves some sharp corners here, and I'm going to just take those off here with my Milwaukee. I tell you, I love this little Milwaukee for doing this kind of stuff, just to make these corners nice and soft, so when someone picks up the whole thing, they're not getting jammed by a sharp edge. So it's looking really good. I got to get a set of hinges, and I want to put something on top of this. So I'm going to run down to the laser and laser something in. Okay, got the top all lasered up. Now it's time to put some finish on. Now I'm just using some boiled linseed oil here. I'm not trying to put a lot of protective coating on it because this is an inside, not handled very much project. And this is going to be perfect for it. It'll just give it some basic protection, something fairly easy. It doesn't provide any color really. It brightens it up a little bit, but not really not something that's going to give you a huge amount of color unless you're planning on doing something like throwing in some stain, and then but you can see it did brighten it up a little bit. So, and I don't really care, I don't really want it to be, a darker color. I like the lighter color. I think that's perfect for what this is going for. Problem with dark colors is you put dark colors on, in something like this, it gets put away. You can't see it because it's got dark colors, and then all of a sudden you're looking for it and can't find it in the back of the closet. So, understanding that, we're just going to kind of throw on some, and we'll make this a close to being done project. Boiled linseed oil's on. We're going to give it a good solid day to cure because this stuff does take a while sometimes. And then we'll come back and look at doing the hinges. Let's get this project wrapped up. Now I want to put some hinges on this thing, but I didn't really want to use brass hinges. And I was thinking about different ways to do that, using wood hinges and whatnot and some other things, pin hinges. And I decided I wanted to use some leather hinges. Now, what I've done here, why don't you guys come in here, I'll show you real close. So I had some of these 3-inch leather rounds that were just laying around. They're basically coasters for all kinds of things, for lasering and whatnot. And I figured I could make some pretty cool hinges out of that. So what I did is I actually wet these. I forced them over a sharp edge and held them there for a little while. So you can see they took the form pretty darn well. And so all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and a couple things I do before I put these on, but I'm basically going to do this. I'm going to glue these in place with cement, and then I'm going to tack them down here, and that'll give me a really nice hinge here. It's not permanent; it won't last 150 years, but it'll last pretty long. And then I got another little strap piece here. I got to cut to the right size, and I'll just put a strap right here. And to secure that, I actually have this pin and knob. All right, this pin and knob is something that you find usually on purses and things. And I had bought these for another project, so I had a bunch of these laying around. And what's interesting about these though is I needed a different screw, and it turns out these are M4s actually, and then these are M4 by 20 just because I had to get through this 5/8. So I'm going to screw this thing in, round that off a little bit, put a little slot and a hole in here, and then same thing, I'll glue and tack that in place, and you can just snap that in place and it'll be great. So, one thing I do want to do though, you can kind of see this is pretty pale. I've already done one of these. I kind of want to give it a little more antique look, so I'm going to hit it with some shoe polish. So let's go ahead and do that. This is just a brown shoe polish I had laying around, which I kind of keep for this exact purpose. We'll just throw some brown shoe polish on here and we'll rub it in really well. And the beauty of it is I'm looking to antique it, so it doesn't have to be a perfect job on it. And this will show any kind of scrapes or scratches. Again, make it look a little on the antique side. We'll set this off to the side here. And you can adjust the color of this, by the way, if you take some saddle soap to it, if it's just too dark for you. But I kind of like the way that looks. So you can see they're a lot darker than they were. This is the original color. And we'll do the same thing here once I cut it. So let me do some cutting, and I'll show you guys doing some gluing, and then we should be all set with this thing. Now I want to do a little sanding on this thing just to round it off a little bit. And sanding works really well. Especially on leather that's this thick. It's almost like sanding a soft wood. And we got a pretty nice looking little tongue on there. Now I'm not going to dress the edges of this. I have the stuff to do that, but I'm just going to leave it raw. I don't see any purpose in that, especially since I'm not dressing the edges on these. No one will know us, and no one will care, so it doesn't really matter. We're ready to rock and roll here. I got to make sure I get these on the right side though, because they're a little bit different. When I bent them over, they aren't identical, which is okay. Okay, next thing I want to do here is put on some contact cement. This happens to be Weldwood. Several companies make this stuff. I like Weldwood personally, but so all I'm going to do is I'm going to put some on this right here where it's marked. I'm going to put some on this where it's marked and not get any here. And then on this part. So I'm going to start just by hitting this. So what's critical though is that because I put these lines on here, I need to make sure these match the lines, because that's going to put this bend right where I need it to be. And oh, by the way, once you set it in, it's not coming out. So placement is super important. If you get it wrong, well, good luck. 90% solution. Now what I want to do is the same thing here, except I'm going to put some on also the back, so when I slide these things together, I'll have that glue on the back too. I probably should hit it here too. So super important that if you get any glue on the face like I did here, that you wipe it off. You don't want your box glued shut. Wouldn't be the first time that's happened, by the way. Okay, I'm going to let this sit for about 15-20 minutes just to make sure that the cement is set, and then I'm going to come back and put in some tacks, some mechanical fasteners. They're mostly for decoration, but I'm also a belts and suspender guy, so I like to have those things in there. We'll be back. Okay, what a great project, boy, I tell you what. And an easy project to do. I gotta say, I had a lot of fun doing this. It's not really hard. Basically all it is a box with leather hinges. So that's pretty cool. Easy to get into and out of, generally speaking. It's not gonna be falling open or anything like that. I anticipate this will probably end up being stored in a trailer someplace over by one of the scout camps. But it is set up for my friend Kevin Wicklund, who's current chapter advisor for Order of the Arrow, Michigami Lodge 29 here in Michigan. So I think that's pretty cool. I'll be handing this off to him pretty soon. And hey, I had a great time building this. Hope you enjoyed watching this. As always, if you want a dimension sketch, drop here, 30minutewoodshop.com. Go ahead and check that out. Go to the bottom, hit more. You can find a lot of the little things that I use here on this project. Matter of fact, a Warrington hammer, I'll try and find one of those. Those are pretty cool hammers. Usually you can find them at I hate to say an antique, but an antique mall or fair. But I wouldn't pay too much for the things, $10, $12. Because quite frankly, they're really not worth much more than that. It's a hammer. But it's kind of a cool hammer if you're doing kind of tack work and those kind of things. Works out really well for small nails. It keeps you from beating your fingers to death. I love those things. Same with the planching hammer. It's one of those things you don't need very often, but when you do, they come in handy, like any tool. So, like I said, go down there, hit like and subscribe if you like this. And hey, folks, until next time, good making.